and his wife, Michelle. Rolling Stone is reporting that according to sources, the Rieners asked if they could bring Nick to Conan O'Brien's party Saturday night. Nick had recently moved back into the family home, and the Rieners wanted to keep an eye on Nick. At the party, apparently Nick displayed, quote, antisocial behavior. One of the things he was doing was staring at people. I'm sure that really doesn't go over very well at celebrity parties. Celebrities, when they're with other celebrities, finally get to let their hair down and relax. And of course, I reported earlier today that Rob and Nick got into a loud argument at the party. It sounds like they may have all come in one car. The Rieners left the party at midnight, around midnight, knowing that both Rob and his wife, Michelle, died because somebody used a sharp object on their throats. Makes me wonder, when did this attack occur? Seems likely that it would have been when Rob and Michelle were in their beds sleeping. How else would this son be?
Wow. Very interesting. All right. So, what we're finding out now is a couple days before the murder, he moved back in with the family, right? Everything kind of okay. This big party comes up at Conan O'Brien's house. They go to it. He starts having flashbacks of the son or being uh, unsociable and staring at people, when there's a bunch of famous people around or whatever. Uh, and an episode breaks out, a big, huge fight or whatever. Now, I seen a video earlier where they said he punched a TV or something like that and shattered the TV, but that might have been a different fight. We don't know what happened actually at Conan O'Brien's. Well, let's listen to a little bit more. Now, I posted this little lady's channel in my chat and in the description. It's called Bad Crimes Stories. So make sure you go check her channel out, but let's check out a little bit more of this.
Be able to corner both of them, allegedly, and then pull off that act of using the sharp object. So unfortunately, I think he
How
might
you
have been
doing, Trump?
seething, and he waited for his parents to go to bed and maybe fall asleep, then went in there and did this horrible deed. This is just me speculating, but it makes sense. It's unclear when Rob Reiner made the appointment for massages that were to take place on Sunday afternoon at 2. That's when a massage therapist showed up at their mansion in Brentwood. When nobody came to the door or answered the phone, it sounds like the massage therapist contacted the Reiner's daughter, Rami, who lives right across the street. She then came over and went inside the house.
All right. Aha. Now we're getting more info. If this is true, very interesting. So they found him at 3:30 in the afternoon. So this is making more sense. There's an altercation at Conan O'Brien's. They leave. They go back home. Maybe the cameras picked up Mr. Reiner, his wife, and his son coming home. And they fall asleep and something he does something maybe in their sleep. Well, that could be. That could be. But now this is making more, you know, kind of more sense of what was going on. All right, let's listen a little bit more. And she's saying that this was pretty gory, and she thinks, and she might be right. That's a very good theory. They go home. There is an altercation at O'Brien's house. They go home. It cools off. They go to sleep. He attacks them, or maybe attacks them as soon as they get in the house. We don't know exactly how long they've been dead. We'll have to wait for the coroner. They might have walked into the door. and he went ballistic. And we don't know, but it does sound like this is a good theory or assumption or whatever you want to call it. That's very plausible and might have happened.
And unfortunately found what she found. It's unclear if Nick Reiner was home at the time. From what I've read, it sounds like Nick had been spiraling in recent months. He'd already been to rehab something like 18 times to deal with drug addiction issues. And apparently, he also suffers from some mental health issues. I read another article that said that Nick had a problem with his father's success and his grandfather's success. That would be Carl Reiner. Some sources are saying that Nick felt that he didn't quite meet up to the expectations, that he fell short of his father and grandfather's amazing achievements and careers. It sounds like there was almost like jealousy between Nick and his father, Nick being jealous of his dad. And apparently there was a loud.
How I hope you folks can hear the video that I'm playing. How would you be jealous of something like that? You're his son. He's the breadwinner, worth all kinds of money. How would you be jealous? If you were smart, you'd just shut your mouth and be good boy. Yeah, that's probably what I would have done. That kind of money and stuff, I probably would have. Uh, I probably would have been a good boy. You have connections to movies through your father and stuff like that. Being able to work, uh, to do something like that, just crazy. I'm crazy, but I'm telling you, we got to start labeling crazy in America. There's normal crazy who just sits home and don't bother anybody and crazier than coon. Don't hurt themselves or whatever. Then there's crazy where these people are hurting themselves or just can't fathom reality. And then there's cuckoo crazy where they're just doing stupid stuff out there, just crazy. And then there's wackadoodle doodle crazy. I can go on with labeling and Manson crazy, and the list goes on and on.
Loud argument at the Reiner home on Thanksgiving as well. So unfortunately, it sounds like the family was suffering some type of dysfunction, kind that comes when you do have a addict in the family. Often there are arguments during family gatherings. I can totally relate to this. Thankfully, I didn't have an addict in my family who would go to such extreme lengths like this. But I well know that when my brother moved back in with my parents, they were not totally looking forward to it. When you live with a drug addict, your items tend to disappear, your jewelry, anything that can be taken to a pawn shop. I'm thinking that some of that may have been going on in the Reiner home as well. Maybe not. Maybe they handed him enough money. When Rob and his son Nick made a film that was semi-autobiographical about Nick called Being Charlie, Bob and his wife Michelle said that they regretted how they treated Nick's struggles with addiction, said they would listen to what the so-called experts told them to do, but they weren't really listening to their son. But now I'm wondering if maybe they got that wrong. Another thing Nick apparently did at Conan O'Brien's holiday party was go up to people and keep asking them if they were famous. Very, very odd. You'd think he'd be used to famous people and wouldn't think it was a big deal. I just feel so bad for their remaining children right before the holidays. Not that there would ever be a good time to have something like this happen. If you're not familiar.
All right, so we're also finding out that he was going up to people that were famous. I mean, you go to Conan and O'Brien's house, you're probably going to be around famous people, which he probably knew that being his dad is very famous. Very interesting, right? Starting to all unfold. If there's any truth to this, then yeah, it seems plausible and motive or whatever. But why would he be jealous of his father, right? You straighten your life up, you do good, uh, you get back in good with the family, you know, you get work through your father, and you'd be pretty well off. You know, he probably would have been well off just being his son or whatever. You know, I've watched a lot of interviews with Mr. Reiner saying he loves this kid. He would never, turn him away or whatever. And I imagine they probably took care of him or whatever. Just horrible, just horrible stuff. Let's watch a little bit more of this, folks. Make sure you go over there and check out Crimes, Bad Crime Stories. It's named.
Familiar with Rob Reiner? He's responsible for some of the most classic movies you've probably seen: When Harry Met Sally, A Few Good Men, Stand By Me. This is Spinal Tap, Misery, The Princess Bride. I was just reading some comments on Reddit about this, and somebody wrote that Nick had just moved back in with his parents 2 days prior to this crime. Of course, I don't know if that's true. Somebody else left this comment, which I found very interesting. I'll quote, 17 plus rehab visits. It took me 6 trips, but sober 9 years now. In those 6 times, the most I heard was someone in there was 12 times. She had a really hard life, shared some of the worst stories I've ever heard, but got sober and is a counselor now. Drugs weren't the issue here. It was the underlying issue that was causing him to take said drugs in the first place. It's not he's just an asshole. There was a mental imbalance there, and he self-medicated. Look at Kanye West. It's not just the drugs there. Long-term to life-term therapy is needed after rehab. You carry this burden the rest of your life. Well, it sounds like the rehab was not working, and if he was in any kind of therapy, it doesn't seem to have been working either. Now he's not going to get any of that because he's going to land behind bars in all likelihood. I mean, it depends on the institution where you end up, but I know somebody who went to jail with a full-blown heroin addiction and detoxed in jail without any assistance. Never received any rehab in there. Nada. That's the latest. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time on Bed Crime Stories.
Life is
Pretty good video there, little lady. Um, yeah, pretty crazy. No, if any of this stuff is true, then it explains a lot of what happened. You know, we didn't know about any alter. We knew that there was an altercation at Conan O'Brien's, but we didn't know the extent of it. That he was walking up to people, not acting right, acting crazy, acting people, or asking people if they were famous, and then they left. Right now, I imagine he probably left with his mother and father. So now it makes sense. He gets onto the property with them. The gate closes. Whether they have a driver or they drove themselves, I guess Conan lives pretty close around there. So they probably drove themselves. Everything gets put away. They go into the house. And somewhere between midnight or something like that, they said they left, or anywhere between 10 and 12, midnight or whatever. After that, something happened. Right? What? We don't know, but I did watch some videos today that said there's a good chance they had cameras in the house and outside. So, there might be footage of this. Uh, we also found out that at 3:30 in the afternoon, a masseuse showed up to give them massages. and they never answered. She went to the daughter's house across the street, and the daughter made entry into the house and found him. So yeah, now it's all coming around, and now if this is true, then yeah, I could see how this happened. To the extent of how gory is it, like the she was saying, or these other people were saying, I don't know because we haven't seen no crime scene photos. That we're hearing it was gory, but we have no idea. Honestly, we don't know until we see crime scene photos and uh, body cam photos of the officers that showed up to report. There was a call made to come there, so they came there. So it's obvious they went in the house and probably had body camera footage of it. I mean, the police ain't just going to show up there. You wouldn't think the police would just show up there and the daughter come out and say, "My parents are dead in there. They're been stabbed," and the police don't make entry into the house right away to see if they're alive or not. So that whole thing, the police weren't there, and I find that how hard to believe. Or they couldn't go into the house until the coroner showed up. I think Debbie Fox was saying 6 hours they had to wait before the coroner showed up. That was the report they gave us last night as we watched it here live. So, yeah, they probably have footage. You can't just show up at a place and they could have still been alive. You're telling me the police just stood there in the ETMs, uh, just sat there and waited for 6 hours for the coroner to come? They could have lived if they were alive still. So it didn't make sense. All right, folks, make sure you check out that channel. We will be back with more content tonight, maybe a peaceful fire tonight, if nothing major happens. You folks have a good night. God bless.